Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is the latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and comes to us from director Destin Cretton, who's mostly known for his dramas like Just Mercy and The Glass Castle. Legend of the Ten Rings follows Simu as Shang-Chi, a martial arts-based superhero who was trained as an assassin at a young age by his father, Wen Wu, who is known to Marvel fans as the Mandarin. The Mandarin is in possession of these mystical 10 rings, which grant him power and immortality, having allowed him to conquer various kingdoms over the centuries. When the Mandarin learns of a dark means to reunite with his deceased wife, Shang-Chi must confront his father and the Ten Rings empire that he has amassed. Going into Shang-Chi, I really wasn't too sure what to expect, outside of the usual Marvel fare. The trailers for the movie had been fairly lackluster, and hadn't done much to get me all that excited about the movie. And while this is far from the best that Marvel has produced, there's a really solid action film here that provides some unique takes on Chinese mythology, and happens to be easily accessible to families. What's really apparent when watching Shang-Chi is that it isn't afraid to embrace being this mythic Chinese fable, where you have the traditional hero's journey archetype that Marvel has utilised considerably over the years, just with an unabashed love for the culture of the character, and believing that it can all work in a universe with Norse gods and talking raccoons. This movie isn't afraid to throw traditional Chinese lions and dragons at you, but with how the movie gradually unveils its more fantastical elements to the audience, you never really feel overwhelmed by it all, and as a result, allows for Shang-Chi to form its own identity amongst all the other solo superhero origin stories. In fact, aside from an over-reliance on flashbacks to tell its story, Shang-Chi is considerably well paced. Now, I've never seen Kim's Convenience, so I had no exposure to Simu prior to Shang-Chi, but I was pleasantly surprised at how entertaining he was to watch, embodying the heart and humour of so many trademark Marvel heroes, while partaking in as much of the action scenes as possible. In a world where so many movies rely on facial VFX replacements to save time and money, it is great to see Simu so involved in nailing the physical aspects of a character so imbued in martial arts. What's more prevalent is the dynamic between Shang-Chi and Wen Wu, played by the legendary Tony Leung. By fully exploring both of the characters' backstories, a great sense of empathy is gained for the two when they come into conflict with each other. You understand that Shang-Chi is deeply traumatized by his father's neglect growing up, having to live in that shadow, but he still holds on to a time when that wasn't the case, where his father really was good to him, while Wen Wu ultimately wishes for that time as well, just for the very different and more violent means of achieving that goal. And it's thanks to the performances from Simu and Tony Leung that allow for the added depth, gravitas, and dimension to characters that weren't the most fleshed out in the past. As with most movies that she's in, Awkwafina again steals the show, being excellent in not only providing the comic relief, but being a crucial part of the third act. In my mind, easily being the best part of the movie. More Awkwafina in the future, Marvel, please. Additionally, I appreciated how the Ten Rings story was integrated and retconned from the Iron Man movies, where the Ten Rings hadn't really been all that fleshed out. Ben Kingsley returning as Trevor Slattery was a fantastic surprise and fairly well implemented, despite how random his inclusion may seem to anyone unfamiliar with Iron Man 3. Trevor Slattery acts as a great tension breaker here, while providing Ben Kingsley the opportunity to have a bit more fun with the character. Now, with this being a Shang-Chi movie, and the heavy emphasis on martial arts, it should come as no surprise that the action is cut above what you'd expect from Marvel. There are no shaky cam, super quick cut action scenes here. Instead, there are plenty of widely shot, well choreographed, stunt-based action that is sorely missed in today's blockbusters. The late great Brad Allen, who has a history working with Jackie Chan, choreographed the fight scenes in Shang-Chi. This means that a lot of the action comes with a number of callbacks and nods to Jackie Chan's greatest stunts. This is easily exemplified best during the much discussed San Francisco bus sequence, which is pretty thrilling, even if narratively it occurs somewhat abruptly. The other major source of inspiration for the film is Ang Lee's Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, specifically in creating the fighting style that the people of Ta Lao use, which at least partly explains why Michelle Yeoh is in the film. Despite all these influences, however, there really isn't anything new being done with the fight choreography. If you are familiar with Crouching Tiger, or any of Jackie Chan's earlier movies like Crime Story, some of the action will feel a bit like safe retreads. It also doesn't help that Shang-Chi feels a little overpowered in the movie, as he rarely gets beaten up all too harshly. He's already fairly strong from the start of the movie, with most of his journey boiling down to learning a new fantasy fighting style. If the movie had maybe borrowed some of that more R-rated, grounded style seen in both of the Raid movies, the fight scenes might have felt just that bit more visceral and tense, because the action is clearly at its best when not relying heavily on CGI. I cannot for the life of me understand why you'd set the big VFX heavy final battle of your movie on the dullest, most overcast day imaginable. What should be a visually stunning set of sequences with some beautifully realised mythological creatures comes off instead looking extremely dull due to how the colour grading and visual effects look. And this is all despite having Bill Pope behind the camera, who has done visual wonders for directors like Sam Raimi or Edgar Wright on Spider-Man 2 and Scott Pilgrim. So although he's primarily a drama director, I do hope that Destin Cretton continues with action films in the future to craft some truly stunning sequences. The potential is definitely there. And although this may sound a bit obvious, is it really hard to have a standalone superhero movie without a wave of MCU references? So many of the Marvel Universe tie-ins felt kinda shoehorned in for future movies, and you just can't help but think that the movie would have been fine without all the various cameos. Shang-Chi is an entertaining introduction to Marvel's latest superhero. The film's focus on family values and exploration of mythology really resonated with me, and I'm curious to see how this movie opens the door to martial arts for younger fans, the way Jackie Chan's movies did for me growing up. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings gets a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you liked this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your Mono Fix. Bye guys.